Am I on? Okay. It's 9:30 a.m., so we'll get started. Welcome to the April 18th, 2024 meeting of the Downtown Design Review Committee. My name is Justin Brandon, and I am chair of the committee. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Do not approach the podium until vacated by a previous speaker. Speak into the microphone, please, and identify yourself and provide your address for the record. When you begin speaking, address your comments, questions, and testimony to the committee. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Citizens may address the committee on agenda items by responding to the chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log on the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove that person from council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you're parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary or in the Arts District parking garage south of City Hall, staff can provide a parking violation ticket to you. The agenda and documents are located at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select on the Downtown Design Review Committee meeting, then click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Keith, will you please call roll?
Brandon.
Here.
Black.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Schmid.
Here.
We have quorum.
Perfect. First on the meeting is approval of minutes. If there is any discussion on those minutes, I'd like to make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, got a motion by Jones,
Second.
second by Blatt. I think about names here for a second. Okay, motion passes. Item number 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item number 4, continuous requests. We have none. Item number 5, consent docket. We have none. Item number 6, case for individual consideration. We have DTCA-23-00054 at 400 North E.K. Gaylord. Laura?
Department. Let me click on that. So this item is back before you. You approved this particular project back in November, and they have determined that they need to modify the cladding of the building, which essentially is this particular material they're trying to replace is 75% of each of the buildings. And per the ordinance, if it's 20% or over, I have to bring it back to the committee for consideration. So just to lay of the land, you have the elevated railroad track on the east, you have 4th Street on the north, you have 3rd Street on the south, you have E.K. Gaylord on the west, and then as you continue north, it becomes Broadway. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through these. Obviously, I didn't take new slides. You've seen these before. So you have a lot of older structures in the vicinity. This is to the north, across 4th Street. And then this one to me is kind of cool because you have multiple buildings, and that is to the west, across E.K. Gaylord, and also across Broadway, although you can't really see Broadway. So I'll leave it on that. Originally, back in 2021, I think some of you were on at the time, you approved a project for this location. That project had conditions that were never addressed with revised drawings, and so it expired before the CA was issued. About the same time that one was expiring, they submitted a new project, which is the project you guys approved back in November, which is 2 buildings and a parking lot on this piece of property. There were several conditions, and I've got them. I don't need to, they're A through F. I don't need to read them all, but they're in the staff report, conditions of approval. And at the time, the buildings were to be clad in brick and stucco, and that is what the applicant had showed when they submitted it. So, and I cite the part of the section of the code that talks about over 20% has to come back to you. I also cite the section of the code, and it's a guideline, that talks about the percent of composite materials. However, as stated in the staff report, that guideline doesn't specifically reference multifamily. It references commercial buildings. And one could argue that apartments would maybe fit more in with commercial buildings, obviously more so than single-family homes. And so what they're proposing is to replace all the stucco with 2 different styles of fiber cement siding. The actual product specs was included in your packet. They're proposing it to be the white. The brick is going to be white, and that product is going to be white that they're using. I include a little information about fiber cement siding. It's come a long way from decades ago when it first came out. However, staff is concerned with the large amount that they want to use on this building. I'm acknowledging there's been several projects that have been approved, apartment projects that have been approved with this product. In most cases, they've had multiple colors. They've had multiple styles and shapes, so they get different looks. One of the most recent ones that I reference is the Muse, which is at the southeast corner of 4th and Chartel, which is a fairly large apartment complex. However, where all of those apartment buildings have been built in that area, those buildings have a very modern aesthetic. And the concern that we've got is when you look at this location, this is not an area where there's a modern aesthetic on this side of the tracks. The tracks kind of give you a dividing line. We have a lot of new construction that's gone on in Deep Deuce on the other side of the tracks. So there are alternative cladding materials and installation methods that replicate the look of the previously approved stucco. That type of product might be more compatible with the architectural style of the building and the surrounding buildings in the historic Automobile Alley District. So staff has suggested a condition that talks about there is a fiber cementitious product by the same company that is supposed to mimic the look of stucco. I'm sure other companies make the same type of product. And so staff is recommending, if you approve it, that you do it with the condition that the applicant revise the proposed product to be a material that more closely approximates the appearance of the previously approved stucco and is architecturally compatible with the previously approved design. This information is required to be submitted to staff prior to the issuance of the certificate of approval. And we do have the applicant, developer, and we have an adjacent business owner, property owner, resident who also wants to speak.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Laura? Laura, do you remember, and just, it doesn't have to be an exact amount, do you know how much of this kind of hardy board material that was used on the Muse, just roughly? You can ballpark it within 20%, it's fine.
If you say so.
Casual.
I remember that you made them change some of the cladding on the east facade, which is next to the condo development, and they actually had to replace the fiber cementitious product, and I think they had to add a metal because they used metal on that building too. So I really hesitate to throw out a percent because
Sure.
I don't
Okay.
want to get the wrong one.
That's fine.
And I don't want you to land on it and say, that's the percent you guys can do. So
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. Any
Now,
other
they
questions?
might know when the architect gets up here. I don't know.
Any other questions for Laura? Okay, if the applicant wanted to speak on this item.
write my name down before I dig into my 3 minutes. My name is Isaac Hines with Tradesman Architectural Studios, 500 North Broadway, Suite 100, literally right across the street, catty corner from that building you see. So this project, as Laura mentioned, was approved in November with stucco. We like that. It was a great product. It's super durable. It fits the area. The issue we're running into is with the current labor market shortage, stucco installers in an area of a project of this scale do not exist in this state. The one or two that we could manage to get a hold of, the price was through the roof. So it's an availability of a labor market issue. So as a team, we researched different materials and tried to find a way to find a material that was durable, would last, would look good, and maintain the integrity and architecture of the area. And as you see this here, I want to spend a few seconds talking about the modern aesthetic. The Muse is 2 blocks that way. This is a super historic building. Proximity, we're close. But if you look at this picture right here, you see an all-glass building in the back. You see a cladding on that building right there that aren't necessarily in context with historic character of what we see downtown. Personal opinion is variety adds beauty to cities. This is something we all need, the project type. Affordable housing in downtown Oklahoma City. I don't think any of us disagree that is needed. And in addition to that, we want to make Oklahoma City look better as well. So we've maintained the brick facade and the pedestrian scale at the street level because the feel of walking through downtown is something that's getting better every day, and we want to maintain that. So we worked very hard to keep that material down low, find a suitable, durable material up top that would best approximate this. And as Laura mentioned, they're used in the Muse, they're used in this. We picked materials that already existed in the city. We're not trying to bring something new, something crazy. This is a material we use, it's great. The other thing about that I wanted to talk about was that the only comment I had, and I chatted at length with Laura about her suggestion to go to these large format panels. Spent some time researching this, chatting with the company that makes these panels. One of the prominent features of this building that you've all seen is that rounded corner at 4th, which is beautiful and draws you into that alley we're creating in that pedestrian zone and that pedestrian scale and that sense of place. The large format panels can't be installed on a radius. So that clause would dictate or necessitate an architectural change, not just a material change, which is one of the reasons we pitched the horizontal and the shake style look. The other reason we pitched that is historically in architecture in major cities and historic buildings, they're broken down into, you've got pedestrian scale, you've got building scale, you've got city scale. So that's why we step these. Down low we have brick, the nice detailing, so when you're walking it feels like that. You step up to level 2, we call that one type of siding which is horizontal, and the scale starts to break down as you step up. Classically and historically, that's a detail that's done, whether it's modern, contemporary, pick your style, breaking down that scales, we try and maintain that and keep that. Switching it all to one style would alter the look, not necessarily be bad, it would be how we play with the joints and the rustications. The biggest concern is the rounded corner. So what we're asking is that if we go this route, we explore the use of materials that are already used, we paint them white, we keep it, as you see in that photo right there, that's a whole lot of beige, a lot of white. So the interest comes from the planning, the landscaping, and the pedestrian scale. We haven't altered that, modified that, changed that in any way, shape, or form. The forms still responds to the adjacent architecture. We feel it's a good fit, it's durable, and it is the next best option before you have to switch to something else due to labor market conditions. Any questions for me?
Any questions for the applicant?
Might not
Yeah.
have been fair for me to land
do
just
have-
on that one. So I probably should also point out that to the north, across 4th Street, is what you see on this slide. So we have a historic building that is
I
on
do
the
have-
corner.
I do have an architectural question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is for you. Because I do have some concern about, well, and I welcome the conversation, so let's have it.
Let's have it.
The hard conversations are always the ones that we need to get to the best answers. Initial concerns about the product were probably in alignment with everything that was discussed, but the corner was really elevated because whenever I've looked at any kind of installation of cementitious products over time, any inconsistency in the substrate does start to telegraph through that, and you start to see subtle, whatever that nuance of the original facade was, and in a cementitious product on a curve, those linear boards. I'm curious how that would perform long-term. And I'm just curious, is there a successful installation at this type of a radius for this type of a cementitious product?
There
over
are when
time?
it comes to the shake and the lap siding that we pitched for levels 2 and then 3 up. And that is a very specific, I called the technical services and we're chatting with them about that exact issue. And to the point on telegraphing, the large format panels that replicate stucco and look like that, telegraphing happens at a greater percentage than it does on the others. And in addition to that, what I was informed of is that in order of telegraphing coming through, you've got the large panels are the worst, the lap siding is next, and then the shake is the best. And that's because the horizontal, it draws those strong shadow lines, and so anything that telegraphs vertically is kind of hidden, and since they stagger, it hides it. The shake look, since they're individual and there's of all the depth changes and the play, is substantially less and almost not visible most of the time is what I'm being told. There are examples of radiusing those two projects on a radius that's slightly tighter than this, whether that's a door frame or a vertical radius. They have examples of that. They've shown how to do it. It's not, I chatted with them like, yeah, we've never explored that, but architects came back to us and taught us how to do that. Now we can give you advice on how to do that. That answer that sufficiently?
Continue the conversation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. Tim Strange, Rose Rock Development Partners, 301 Northwest 13th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the committee. This project has been underway for over 4 years. It's been very difficult to get across the finish line, to get closed and under construction. I don't have to tell you about the headwinds that this project and all projects are facing today with construction costs, supply chain, labor shortages, and then interest rates on top of all of that. So we've been trying to thread the needle on this project to get it closed. It's been very complicated. The capital stack is very complicated. We're still working on that. There's still some moving parts. But any additional cost to this project is going to be a hardship to us. We're constrained on our debt service coverage at a 115. That's the lowest level any investors or lenders will accept. And then we're also constrained on the top side by our rents. And we're building an affordable project, 100% affordable, 60% of AMI average, a very nice project for downtown Oklahoma City that anybody would be happy to live in. And so would ask for your consideration in this. I know it's not your problem, but it's our problem to figure out and to get it closed. But again, any additional cost that comes about because of this will be burdensome to us, and I just ask for your consideration in that. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay.
Anyone from the audience? Okay, there we go.
Hi, Chairperson and committee. I think actually the last time I was here was on this project. No, maybe it was firefighters. But anyway, it's good to see you. I will say before I start my remarks that I appreciate what you do here. It's a volunteer position, and you try your very best to make good decisions. So thank you for that. I have also been on that side of the shoe.
Sir, would you name and address?
I'm sorry, Anthony McDermott. I was just getting into that. That's a 5-minute introduction right there. So I'm going to read from notes because I think this is I want to make a good argument before I ask you to make a decision. So my name is Anthony McDermott. I live in Maywood at 100 Blakeney Place, and I office in the CBD across the street from the subject property. Not to put too fine a point on it, but actually as I come to think about this project is in the CBD. It is downtown, but it is in the Central Business District, which is an important distinction to make. There are no, I'm going to say hardy board, okay, rather than cementitious, composite, whatever, hardy board. There are no projects with hardy board in the CBD. Let's be clear on that. So I'm an architect, I'm a planner, I'm an urbanist, I'm also a developer. I started my firm in 1988, downtown Oklahoma City, when we were the only architect downtown. In fact, we were some of the only people downtown. So fortunately, that has changed. We moved into 415 North Broadway in 2000, And after commuting from Norman for several years, I moved downtown. So I've lived downtown, worked downtown for decades. I was the first resident in the CBD, and I was the first resident in the CBD. And now I live just the other side of the tracks from the subject property in the middle of Maywood, which is 4 city blocks. Maywood is 4 city blocks. Eric lives there, I live there, and there are 1,000 homes in that 4-block area. It is clearly the most dense residential area in Oklahoma City, as is appropriate for downtown. The site in question is the last contiguous 3.2 acres of undeveloped land in the CBD, and I would say conservatively valued between $8 to $10 million. And I can provide the comps for that if you would like them. For purposes of scale, it's a city block. It's 3.2 acres is a city block. This is the 3rd proposed project on this site in recent memory. I remember the first was a proposal for a new building for the Chamber of Commerce. It was a relatively small, football-shaped, 4-story office building sitting in the middle of 3.2 acres with surface parking. It was very, very residential in concept. I protested it. I was here, sitting on my own, and over here was the Chamber of Commerce, Clay Bennett, Mr. Nichols, all the chamber representatives, and it was clearly not an urban project. It was a suburban project in the CBD, which is why I protested it. It didn't conform to a single guideline of the DD, of the Downtown Design Review Committee. Anyway, it died. It died a natural death in 2008 for very obvious reasons. The second proposal was for a high-rise residential project on the north part of the site, and the proposal included the Okura parcel, which was then on the south side of the site. Okura basically killed the idea because they didn't want a lower rise element on the south side of the site. They subsequently bought the site for $4.4 million. So they bought half the site for $4.4 million. And I tell you all this to give you context for what I'm about to share with you. If you fast forward, the latest Okura RFP for the site was contested. There were several proposals, and the winning proposal is part of the proposal that you see today. So I had issues with it, many urban design issues with it. A lot of my neighbors had urban design issues with it, but at the end of the day, it was approved by this committee. It was 3 buildings and structured parking. And I can't remember the number of units in it, but it was, obviously it was 3 buildings, this is 2 buildings. And the 3rd building was bigger than the other 2, so. It pretty much covered the site. All right. The proposal now is for 200 affordable apartments and over an acre and a half of surface parking. So we're back to that suburban development type now. As we all know, the nation has turned its attention to housing crisis, and affordable housing has become like the mantra of many elected political officials. So affordable housing has now, the idea of affordable housing, which is much needed. Everybody in the nation knows that. The idea, though, has become politically embraceable. And now it has opened up various funding streams, grants, low-interest loans, gifts, and has made affordable housing projects for a developer a much more practical proposition. Okay. This project, so I dug into it a little bit. This project is advertised to be a $58 million project, and that's published and also been presented to Okura. That did not include land cost. It does not include land cost. So we're talking about a piece of property that's worth $8 to $10 million. It's arguable. But and a $58 million project cost. For 200 apartments, it works out to be somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000 a key. The capital stack, the capital stack was presented to Ocura. I looked at it. I shared it with developer friends. I shared it with apartment developers. They all shook their heads and said, this doesn't make any sense. To put this much money into 200 apartments, as noble as affordable apartments are, in the CBD, supported by 200 surface parking spaces. I think that ship has sailed, unless I can talk to elected officials to kill the project, which I hope to do. But in my opinion, this is the wrong project, it's in the wrong place, and it significantly devalues property values and expectations in the Oklahoma City's CBD. It's very important to understand this is in the central business district. So, without going into the capital stack and the developer's fees and all that, which I can go into if you like, and they're here. So, each of you has seen this proposal and you've approved the design. You've approved it. So, what I'm asking you this morning is not to further devalue the built environment by allowing this material and just hold firm. It's the most expensive apartment complex in the city, by far. And it's using the cheapest possible exterior cladding material. So I would ask you to consider to not approve this request for hardy board / cementitious composite, whatever. And that's it. That's my piece. But I'm open to any questions you might want to ask.
Any questions? Okay. Okay, this might be back for the applicant. Thank you, sir. Or for the architect. What is the kind of life cycle for this material? I've seen it just used in a residential application and for a project that was built in 2011. And within 10 years, I think that you've seen its age, whether that be in just kind of like a mismatch and between the end of one piece of the siding to another. So just making sure that this product kind of looks clean for and presentable for not only residents but the rest of Oklahoma City for hundreds of years or 50 plus.
So to address your concern directly, you're right. When it has been residential, there is and to one of the points from somebody else mentioned as well, this is commercial construction, not residential. There are different tolerances, different grades. And with residential, there are architects involved. Part of what I do in construction administration is making sure things are constructed right to avoid those issues.
Okay.
As to the durability and longevity of this material, it's been around longer than I've been alive. I'm pretty sure Anthony's used it in some of his projects, so it's kind of a misnomer to pretend that we don't know what it is. It's been around for a long time.
Sure. It
is, basically, I'm gonna boil it down real simply. It is essentially concrete that's formed into shapes and panels, and so the durability of it is inherently in the material. It's one of the oldest building materials in existence since people started being architects. So the material durability is great. The developers, we are all committed to a quality project and supervision through construction administration to avoid those issues about improper joining, improper fastening. None of us want that to happen. This is a great project. To the comment about this being the cheapest material that was just stayed for the most expensive project, I'm sure Tim Strange will speak to the fact that this is not the most expensive apartment building, but I want to speak to the fact that this is the comment that this is the cheapest material we could possibly substitute. That is a misnomer and a falsehood. There are other materials allowed in this area, EIFS being one of them, which I think we all hate, and I am trying to avoid that at all costs. it gets destroyed by hail, I don't want to go there. We as a group actively sought to find a product that could be installed, be just as durable, and we all agree to maintain it and take care of it. To the comment about there are none of these in the CBD, the district is the downtown design district. The CBD is not split out of that of the map. The district as a whole encompasses that. In the district that I am in and the guidelines I adhere to is the same district that the Muse that was mentioned earlier was in. We pulled those. We're not trying to recreate the wheel or do something new. These are materials that have been used and are being introduced. And the fear of change is something that people always have to overcome. I can promise you that as a group, I know these gentlemen, they are committed to not only building affordable housing, which is affordable for the people that work and live in downtown, but they are committed to taking care of that. This is not a fly-by-night operation. I think everybody in this room knows the gentleman standing behind me way more than you know me. We are a product of Oklahoma City. We love it. We're committed to a quality project to address any issues you have with that.
Is there a specific year in kind of in your that you've seen in your profession? Is there a year in which these hardy board siding needs to be maintained? Is there if that makes sense?
It does, and that's a valid question. And as we mentioned, we're going to paint it because we want that monolithic, that white, the vibe we're going for architecturally. So with anything that you paint is a maintenance, and it's also a protective membrane on that material. Cementitious fiber siding does not weather like vinyl siding, like wood siding. It's resistant to rot, mold, insects, mildew, take your pick. That's in the product material itself. Painting it and maintaining that would be just the same as if it were EIFS, if it were anything else, a painted substrate. The paint is your rate limiting factor on maintenance. And as long as you maintain that, the substrate behind it is protected in addition to its natural resistant characteristics anyway. So I would say whatever a painting schedule is, once every, 5-10 years, take your pick, somewhere in that ballpark. But the material itself, if maintained and taken care of, should last the life of the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Strange again. My partner Sean Smith with Belmont Companies is here. Belmont has developed over 3,000 units in the Southwest, and they self-manage. And furthermore, we're going to own this project for at least 15 years. We have to because of the affordability requirements. So that's why we believe in this material and the longevity of it, and we're going to be living with it for at least the next 15 years. The construction costs are what they are. This is 2024. We all know what the situation is. We have value engineered the heck out of this project down to the point where we're just down to the last dime, really, in terms of our project cost. I don't know what to tell you, about that. It's just, with the constraint on the bottom line, with the debt coverage ratio, and the constraint on the top line, with the affordability, the affordable rents, essentially, again, we're trying to thread the needle on that. Also, one other point is that this is phase one of a two-phase project. We did start out at over 300 units initially. It was infeasible to do 300 units and a structured a parking garage, so we had to drop back and do 2 buildings, 214 units, surface parking, but that's just phase one. Phase two will be the 3rd building and the parking garage at some point in the near future, so those are our plans. Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions?
I looked it up while I was sitting down. This specific material quoted has a 30-year warranty and a 50-year shelf life.
Yep. Thank you.
I do appreciate your concerns about the material and the longevity of the material. I think it's speculative at best. As Tim said, it's a 15-year project for them. Bricks, stone, concrete, glass, we know that they last a long time. This material, there are no guarantees. And as far as the second phase, I've heard the pitches for this project. I don't know how you displace 200 parking spaces to build a second phase. There has to be a strategy for that, but on a site like this, I don't know how you build a parking garage and another building and displace 200 parking spaces at the same time. It seems to me it does not make a viable project. It sounds good, but in practical terms, I just don't see how you can do it. So there's that. These guys, I know these guys. These are, this is not a personal thing for me. I am just, and to Isaac's point, the CBD is the CBD. Yes, it's part of the downtown area, the wider area, but the CBD is important. It is special. It is the most valuable real estate in Oklahoma City. I mean, I have under contract 3 city lots for $1 million. That's how valuable the CBD is. And I do not think this is the correct project. I don't think the original project was correct project, but this project has deep, deep flaws as a, 200 apartment units in the central business district. I'm really, really concerned about it. And a sea of parking.
Thank you.
Thank you. That ship has sailed. I understand that,
Yeah.
but I am asking you to consider that if this thing does get built, that it's built to last as long as it possibly can. And it sticks. It's wood frame, right, with hardy board. That's a fact.
Any comments from committee members?
Tim Strange again. We will own the project for at least 15 years, probably forever. And we do have a parking strategy for Phase 2. We're partnering with the YMCA. They currently have about 50 parks on the site. They will be moving those parks into the garage they own, a 500-space garage, which they have some spaces leased to Heartland, but Heartland is only about 40% return occupancy to the building at this point, so there should be plenty of parking in that building. Also, parking occupancies are below 80% in the CBD, so there's available parking, whether it's the Heartland garage or some other parking, surface parking or structured parking, available to move those folks in temporarily until we finish the garage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for me, I wholeheartedly support the project. The entity that I work for believes this is one of those kinds of developments that we need to see in the downtown Oklahoma City core area. But my responsibility here as a member of the Downtown Design Review District is to make sure that the project complies with the guidelines that have been set for us to review. The staff has recommended that they be involved in the final approval for this project when the materials that are going to be submitted are decided. I have, in my years on this board, been very pleased with the diligence of the staff in ensuring that everything that is done possible to comply with those guidelines are being done. So I just wanted one more time, Laura, is to just get the staff's concerns and the reasoning behind us giving approval for you guys to approve the final material before the issuance of the certificate of approval.
Obviously, when I wrote this and made the recommendation, yes, I found the product online. I'm not an architect. I always wanted to be, but I'm not an architect. And so I really know nothing about that product. I had a conversation with the project architect about, I was concerned about the curve on the corner and which product they were going to put, which style they were going to put on the curve. You typically don't see horizontal lap siding on, well, typically we see it on houses, and we don't see it very much other than houses, and that was one of the styles that they were proposing. Obviously, that would also be a concern of ours on the curve. So we were making this suggestion, it's just a suggestion, as a way that we could have discussion about it. They have indicated that this product that we were referencing comes in big sheets, big panels, and it doesn't work on the curve. So with that being said, obviously, there was a lot of homework that would have to be done. So if the committee says what you're looking for is the same in appearance, and that's what you want, I mean, you have some choices. Obviously, you've heard from them that they're saying they can't afford the stucco, which is what the current approval is for. There are other products out there. He mentioned one that definitely we're not a fan of. When he mentioned EFS, we've had that conversation here as well. And in fact, I believe you had that conversation on the last project that was approved at this location because it had EFS. Up higher, but it had EFS. I think this one has some detailing, if I'm not mistaken, cornices and stuff that is EFS, but they weren't using it as one of the primary wall cladding materials, which is great because we prefer it to only to be used as detailing. So is your question, does staff feel comfortable working with them to come up with something? Or,
No.
okay,
I feel that the expertise is there, and I know you'll do your due diligence in meeting with others to research what other recommended materials are going to be engaged. I just wanted to hear that you guys did come up with that as a way in order to try to find a solution to the issue of the stucco not being available as originally approved. That was it for me. I am ready to move on the motion, but I am the at-large member, so I am probably the least knowledgeable of anyone that is on this board. But I want to ensure that we do remain at least honest in our approach and committed to the guidelines. And I do feel comfortable with giving the staff the ability to work out a solution that meets the guidelines as we originally approved them.
I just want to add to what Laura said. I think, and as you see in the staff report, staff had concerns about the proposed product for multiple reasons. One is the product itself, that the guidelines don't, in general, support the use of this product at this percentage of the facade. Yes, we've approved it on other projects, but that doesn't mean we have to approve it every time. It's a case-by-case review, and we know that there are concerns about the product in general and its quality, as well as many other products that the guidelines call out as being allowed in a limited quantity. The other concern that staff had that we've talked about today as well is the appearance of the product and the design of the product. As has been stated, staff didn't feel that a lap siding product was appropriate on a building of this design. Maybe if it was a completely different design, that would fit. But on the building as designed, in the area where it's proposed, we didn't think that that profile, that the two profiles of siding were a compatible product. That's why we landed on saying, you know, a potential condition would be that something other than stucco is allowed, but that it should still approximate the look of the stucco. Now, there may be other options, and I think based on the discussion I've heard today, it may be something that does need to come back to the committee because some of those concerns are very specific to the product and to the quality of it. And you all may want to see it again. I think that we identified one particular product that is comparable to what they had proposed, but that more closely approximates the look that had been previously approved. But there are many other options out there. So the committee may want to say, we want to see other alternatives. It's just one other possible path to take.
I think one of the other considerations that I wrestle with is the fact, I remember when this came the last time, and there was a really healthy discussion about the use of EFS as some ornamentation, and it was enough of a component of the discussion that it really brought a lot of considerations out whenever we were trying to decide what the vote would be. I'm thinking back to that conversation. If that would have been EFS plus cementitious siding, I think that would have resulted in, I think we need to pause and come back and see what our options are at the time of that particular meeting. I don't know that I agree. For me, it still is the corner. I think that the corner is the radius part is the thing that I could see it not ending the way that everybody thinks it might. And at that point, it's done, and you've got it. So I'm just concerned about the corner. That's my biggest concern.
Tim Strange again. I appreciate that. We are on a timeline, though. I did not make that clear earlier. We are in the process of finalizing our construction loan. We do have our tax credits in place. We are shopping our loan between 3 different lenders, and we're trying to close by the end of May, early June. So if coming back causes a delay, that could be detrimental to us in terms of, trying to get closed here as soon as we can. I appreciate that.
So I am going to go ahead and move that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant revise the proposed product to be a material that is more closely approximate the appearance of the previously approved stucco and is architecturally compatible with the previously approved design. This information is required to be submitted to staff prior to the issuance of the certificate of approval.
Before that, do we have any other comments?
I think I'm sitting here struggling because, yes, there's a time constraint on closing a loan, but we have maybe Oklahoma City's largest contiguous tract of land that is crucially important to the long-term health and wellness and development of downtown Oklahoma City. And I think back to the 3-building scheme with the parking garage. The exterior was clad in almost all brick with a beautiful gradiented blend. And we've rolled back to an all cement stucco 2-building version. And now we've rolled back to a 2-building lap siding product. And I'm just struggling with what the next rollback is going to be that could be administratively approved, or I struggle with that personally. And I know we can't take into account the 3-building scheme, and I know 2024 is very different than 2019, but something feels not right about that to me.
So just as a reminder, staff can only do an administrative approval on something that's less than 20% change. So that was one of the first questions you saw in your packet. He gave me the math, because I'm all about the math. I'm like, show me the math. And I'm like, it's 75% of each building. Clearly, it's over 20%. So if it had been less than that, the math had
Yeah, of course.
had
I'm
worked,
just-
yeah, so
I'm
just
sitting
keep
here-
that in mind.
Yeah, and I'm just
Something
sitting,
that is less than 20% and that meets the guidelines and the intent of the
Yes.
previous approval. So even if it was a 3% change, if staff felt like it was not consistent with what this committee had previously agreed to. I was going to make one other comment. I don't know that the motion that's in your staff report works now, because I don't think the applicant has agreed to that condition. So staff can be comfortable administratively reviewing all sorts of things, but if the applicant doesn't want to make that revision, then we've got to come up with another path.
The only other thing I would like to say, it's Isaac Hines again, to your point, Eric, is to the first point about further rollbacks, and it piggybacks onto what Tim said. We're ready to close, we're ready to go, we're in the money, this is good. To the comment that we had about, the suggestion from Laura, go with this large panel format that best resembles stucco. And we keep getting hung up on lap siding. That was like, a partition, and we also had cedar shake. The material, I haven't heard anybody question the durability of the material. There are 15, 20 different profiles. We know the material is in the budget. That's what we're changing, is the material. Now, the profile being that, that seems to be what everybody is arguing right now is, I don't like the lap siding. Do I go with a flat panel? Do I go with it? I have to, architecturally, what we don't want to do is, to your point, Mr. Blatt, the corner is a very strong element. I am sensitive to that. I agree that that is what bookends Automobile Alley and makes it feel amazing. And coming into that alley, and that radius draws you in from a city planning standpoint, from an architectural standpoint. It is dynamic, it is strong, it makes a statement, it is beautiful. The material, I think, is the only, I haven't heard a single comment that I don't agree with this material other than Mr. McDermott back here. So if we're just discussing profile, is there a way to approve this and say with this material, and then we just work on selecting a profile that not only works architecturally to maintain the integrity of the corner and gets the durability and keeps the project moving forward? That's what I would say to your comment, Mr. Schmidt, about that, is that I'm open to different profiles, but the material itself, to me, and to address your point about what's the next cut, nobody on the team wants to compromise any further, and any different material, not profile, different material is a further reduction in quality, time, and increase in cost. Thank you.
Sorry, one question for you. So on this rendering that's been submitted in the application, that is this how you're intending that this material is being used?
Yeah, so if you see that, you'll see the lap siding in there. And the reason we chose those is, if you remember the original proposal, floor 2 had rustication joints horizontally every so many. So we did the lap siding to keep that. And it goes back to my first comment about breakdown in scale. We have a heavily detailed ground floor podium. You go up one scale, we had that. Then it broke down further with larger rustication joints. So that was our mentality and our thinking, is that lap siding can replicate horizontal rustication joints. And then the cedar shake will look monolithic and blend in, and so playing with those two and how we break that down with scale is what we were doing. Those are the two profiles we picked. The material is the material.
So are you all looking at what he's talking about? Some of you might be.
I believe I am.
On the
Okay.
screens, we are,
I trust you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think he just gave it back over to us. Katie, if
Thank
you
you.
wanted to pull that up.
and I want to note that that provision in the motion is about the material. And I think they do a good job, and if we need to make it stronger, about compliance with the architectural design for the project.
So you were talking, so the first floor up to the first horizontal line band is brick, correct? Yes, ma'am. And then between the two bands, which is the second floor, that's where you're doing the horizontal, the lap siding, correct? And then above that, so starting at the floor of the third floor and up, is that where you're doing the shingle?
So when we first got your comment, yes, that's what we were playing with, is that level 2, you can see, look between those two windows right there, so you see all the horizontal rustications. That was to mimic the control joint pattern we had in stucco. We are trying to actively maintain the look. The large, and you can see there, they actually both look horizontal, because you could switch them either way. But what we're trying to do is pick two different panels of a durable material that we can readily get, there's installers available, and replicate those looks and change the joint patterns. Level 2 has a unique joint pattern because as you move up, scale breaks down, go up to 3, and we're open to discussing other patterns, but the large format that was suggested, in her suggestion, we recommend approval based on this. That particular profile that they picked doesn't work. So if all we're arguing is which profile we go with, all of these panels can replicate the texture and feel of stucco, because stucco can have rustication joints however I choose to design them. I could put one every 2 inches if I felt like making a weird grid. So this replicates that in not only durability, but how it looks and how you play with that breakdown and patterning.
I think thank you for the detail and the color. For me, I have not seen this other than in a rendering, and I don't know if I feel comfortable in making this decision without seeing something that has been either in a different city in the same kind of facet, or just some other example of how you plan on using this, if that makes sense. So, especially with its location, especially with it being in our purview of the downtown design, I think it could look really good on a rendering, but I don't know what that looks like in real life, would be my concern for me.
I just have one more thing to say, which is that I appreciate your diligence in researching the material. This committee's purview is not about affordable housing. We all love affordable housing, right? It sounds great. It's a good thing. We all want it. It's not about affordable housing or the developer's timeline on financing the project. It's about how it looks, and how it looks for the next 100 years. The buildings around this building have been there for 100 years. The Pioneer Building, the 405, the Oklahoman Building. I mean, this is right between some really important buildings in Oklahoma City in the central business district. So I don't want you to judge it on the merits of being affordable or affordable housing. It's about the guidelines, the way it looks, its durability, its compatibility within its context. Thank you.
Two last points. I highly encourage you to look up, this has been used in major cities across the U.S., but we mentioned at the start of this the Muse. The Muse used, the two products I picked are used on the Muse. I picked those specifically because they had already been approved to try and make your lives easier. Second point, the CBD is not in the purview of the DDRC. The DDRC is the Downtown Design District. I agree it has weight, it has significance, but if we're going to try and limit scope, let's keep it in the DDRC.
Yeah, I think, again, my concern would be kind of the corner in this rounded kind of area. I don't think it's if this is going to be something that lasts and is at a great corner in our district and our design district, then I want to make sure to get this right, regardless of timeline.
So we have a motion that's hanging out there, and we don't have a second yet.
I believe we have someone who wants to speak.
Yep.
Yeah, Sean Smith, Belmont Development Company. I just, wanted to reiterate some of the things that Isaac and Tim have already said. In this discussion, I haven't heard what the solution is. I mean, I've heard that, we're not sure that we like this or what it's going to look like, but I mean, we've got to get this done. The city decided that they want affordable housing here. We've put together a plan to do that. Obviously, you all know that, when we first came in with stucco as the recommendation, that's kind of where we start. Then we have to get bids for that, and that's where we are now. I mean, we've gotten the bids, and that just doesn't work. So we've got to find a solution that does work. This is a great product, as Isaac has said. It's going to allow us to move forward with this housing. Any delays is just going to make this project even more difficult. As you know, interest rates are fluctuating and increasing as we speak, and building cost is going up. So we really, really need to get this project moving and approved. And so I just wanted to make that point again. Appreciate what you all are doing and the concerns that you have, but this is a balancing act, and as all developments are, and that's what we're doing here. Is we're trying to solve this balancing act. So thank you very much.
So Mr. McDermott is correct. This is not about affordable housing, and it's not about your financial timeline. I totally agree with that. When this project came up before, we looked at the architectural design and looked at its compliance with the guidelines and the requirements of this review, and we thought it met that. Where I guess I sit is the big change is we're not able to do the stucco as we originally proposed. So the question is, do we feel that using something different still meets with what we approved for this particular project? I feel comfortable that the options that are presented work. The question is, what is the process do we go about in order to approve that? I'm also okay with the staff having the ability, understanding that the requirements for that project have been approved, and if this material doesn't meet that, then we can't approve this. So for others, it's where do we go with this?
I do think this is where the balancing act really goes back to the architect. You've got an architect who has threaded the needle on a difficult project, on a difficult site, with a difficult budget, with a difficult timeline, and this all lands right back to solve this particular item. I don't think it's necessarily this commission's purpose to solve an item that is truly an architectural item to solve, about finding the right material and the budget that meets with, if the geometry of the building was different, this might have been an easier discussion for me. I'm terrified of a corner facing west. It's going to take west heat. It could be something that we didn't want, and I've seen that happen in the past. I wouldn't want to be the one that said okay without at least saying, allow your architect to be what he can be and assist in identifying I realize it's a tight fashion. I'm willing to work with staff so that you can still achieve your timeline, it's really his. I've been asked, we've been asked, all asked to be in that same shoe.
Sure.
It's a tight spot for us to just give a blanket approval whenever it's a spot wherever I think it could be very challenging. So I'd like for your architect to have the opportunity to shine
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
solve this.
So to your point, Mr. Blatt, I've had in-depth conversations, and you're right, this is threading a needle. I've been working on this project for 6 years, and if I didn't believe in what I'm trying to do, I wouldn't be here right now. But to that point, when she recommended the flat panel, I'm okay with that on the entire, like the bulk of the project, except for this curve. So a possible suggestion would be to accept that, and then I just work with her on the curve.
The flat panel won't work. I know for you,
Yep.
I'm telling you,
Yep.
I wouldn't do it. It
Yep.
would look terrible immediately afterwards. And knowing that the flat panel would look terrible immediately afterwards is exactly why I'm
Agreed.
concerned that this product, I know maybe there's been some successful installations, but it seems like we are putting the wrong material on the wrong geometry.
And to your point, you're exactly right. What we're arguing about, everything else, they're all valid topics, and we all need to discuss them because we're all trying to make the city better. The main point is that I switched a material from stucco to cementitious fiber. Cementitious fiber is allowed. I'm just over the % quantity. So approval of the material, I think, can happen, and then I just work with staff on the profiles and the detailing, to your point, because that's my job. That's what I do.
Yeah, you're all right. You've also got a couple of other wrinkles about the EFIS that came in.
Yep.
That was the original compromise that got us to the point where
Correct.
we could allow the stucco with.
Yep.
So I realize it's a difficult challenge. I know that there's a solution.
Anything difficult is worth it.
Yeah,
This is worth
yeah.
it.
We can have two kinds of hard. We can either have the hard of finding the right material, or we can have the infinitely long hard of looking at the wrong material.
Yes.
We get to choose which hard we have. I'd like to go through the hard of finding the right material and then executing it, and then everybody gets to live with it afterwards.
And
I like
I
the project.
legitimately feel like this is the right material. It's just how we detail it. Thank you.
What is
Yes.
our current motion?
So there is a motion, and Gary read what I had in the staff report. So let me just say that really targets that particular type of that product, which is what looks like stucco. That
Panelized?
doesn't
cement.
necessarily allow them to have other profiles as part of that approval based on the way this is worded. And we've heard everybody talk about the way the stucco product is. It's in big sheets, which won't work on the curve.
I'm open for modifications. I personally feel that the motion accomplishes what needs to happen, but I know that it requires the staff working with the architect to find what that solution is. Other members of the board have to feel comfortable with that process. If you want it to come back, I'll withdraw and we can do that. But I believe that we're close, and I think everybody is trying to accomplish the same thing. It just needs to be a conversation that needs to be happening immediately.
So typically, if there's a condition, we make sure the applicant's okay with the condition. If somebody wants to continue it, we make sure the applicant is okay with that. We've heard from them that they're not okay with continuing it. And so we need to see if,
Is the applicant agreeable to the condition? The condition being that the applicant revise the proposed product to be a material that more closely approximates the appearance of the previously approved stucco and is architecturally compatible with the previously approved design. This information is required to be submitted to staff prior to the issuance of a certificate of approval. So is the applicant agreeable to that condition?
We are agreeable to that. Just understand that I'm going to have to figure out and work on how to detail this corner and make that work. But the condition for 90 to 95% of the building, we are agreeable with. So any change I have in the future would be less than the 20% she mentioned that can be worked with through staff. Correct?
So what I'm hearing from the committee is a lot of concern about exactly how this is going to look and exactly how it's going to be executed. I'm also not hearing 100% confidence in the proposed product. I might be wrong on that, but I'm hearing still some doubts about whether the proposed product is appropriate, at least for the entire project. Based on the conversation I've heard to this point, I would not be comfortable with this being delegated to staff, because I don't feel like we have an agreement. I don't feel like we have clear direction from the committee, from what the applicant's comfortable with. I think we need to hone in a lot more specificity on exactly what the committee wants to see from staff before this is a staff approval.
If this was going to come back, I realize that there's no desire to delay, but what's the tight time frame to be on the
So,
very next?
The tight time frame is if it comes back next month, we need everything next Tuesday.
Is that the I realize there's the date and then there's the date. I'm asking
the
the
next
question that I'm not supposed to ask.
The next meeting is May 16th. What I would say, to put words in Laura's mouth and sign her up for stuff she doesn't want me to sign her up for, is this staff report is written. We definitely don't need 3 weeks to go back in and say, they're going to do this. You know, we've reviewed this project extensively. Right now, we're talking about some very fine details and products. I think we could definitely work with them on timing to get
May 29th.
revisions in. Well, May 29th would be, if we're talking about a May 16th DDRC.
I'm sorry, April 29th.
Yeah, April 29th.
Yeah, April 29th.
And
Would that
that's,
allow you to keep your June?
Well,
date?
actually, how about, we could land on May 1st. That's a Wednesday,
Yeah,
May Day.
yeah.
Would that allow you to keep your schedule? And I realize that I
The
don't,
problem is, you know, until we finalize this, we can't finalize costs.
We're trying to
And
strike-
we can't finalize financing. So, I mean, whatever delay is a delay, day for day, to our project. And that's problematic. Is there a solution in the middle here that's an approval conditional on, and I don't know, I don't have an answer for you, but conditional on something that allows us to stay on track, be pointing in this direction, trying to finalize and close as soon as we can? That's what I'm asking, and I don't know the answer to that.
is the problem with the stucco because of the amount of stucco, because of the height of stucco? Is it?
They could, they were, that,
Right.
what I heard him say was they had a hard time finding the craftsmen to do it. And so when they finally found some, their prices were through the roof.
But it was through the roof because of some component of this
So
project.
stucco is a very old building material. You technically
Yeah.
get this 4-coat scratch. Great,
Yeah,
it's
got it.
awesome, love it. We could only find 2 people that were even willing to travel to the state to do a project this size. And to give you an example of how difficult it's been, I'm renovating the old Bank First Tower for Harlow. We had to have somebody come in and just repair stucco window soffits, and it took me 4 weeks to find somebody to patch a soffit. It is technically infeasible to find somebody to physically do that. And because those 2 guys were like, well, I can do it, they get to charge whatever they want.
Right.
And that's not something that, as architects, we should be in a habit of, as being held to extortionists, for lack of a better phrase. So we chose for materials that were allowed. We exceeded the quantities. We agree with their recommendation for 95% of the building. And to Tim's point, we're trying to avoid any possible delays. So I would look for a recommendation to, if staff recommended approving it, and to your point, Katie, you know, we're arguing about minutia, and we're arguing about the corner, which is less than 20% of the site. So if you were to ask me what my recommendation would be, it was approve it based on the staff's recommendation, and then work with staff on the corner to come back. And obviously, we won't get a CO till we satisfy not only staff, but you guys as well. Did that answer your question, Mr. Black?
And what I was going to say is I would be real concerned and hesitant about additional revisions to the cladding, given that we're currently dealing with 75% of the cladding, because he was saying, oh, if we keep it less than 20, Laura, you can do it. And I could. That doesn't mean I necessarily would, because of all this discussion we've had and the concern.
so committee members, is this something that you would want to see back here?
I'm okay with the motion. I think it has to come back.
Okay. So do you need to change our motion?
No, I withdraw it because
Okay.
there's no way it's going to pass.
Okay.
The dilemma is if it doesn't work, to come back. We always ask. So a continuance would have to be by request. The other option is a denial, which we don't want to do because then it really kicks it out further.
Okay, so,
And I'll say a denial would be a denial of the revision. They still have a valid CA for a project. It would just be, yes, sending them back to the drawing board if they still need to change.
My dream position is the stucco finds a way to work. I realize it's been difficult to find a way for it to work. That's my dream answer is that during the time period between now and whenever it would have to come back, that there's a way to find for the stucco to work, because that's easy. Anything else on the corner is challenging. I'm not a huge, I've used this product and I see its place. I'm not a huge fan of it downtown. I'm not. I realize what we're doing and I know that we've used it in the past. This particular instance, especially the Cedar Shake part, that's the part that, from you said profiles. Cedar Shake on this building seems way out of character. Putting the horizontal piece on the radius is the part that's the bigger concern. What are our options?
So I think first thing is you need to find out from the applicant if they're willing to continue all or part of their request, because if they're not, and they want it voted up or down, that's their decision. And so then that would tell you all, if they're not willing to continue any piece of it, then you all have the option to look at what was submitted and either approve it or not.
And you'd be willing to take something on the 1st of May to be on the May agenda?
Yes.
yeah.
Because right now, I don't have anything else on that agenda.
So is there any willingness from the applicant to go back, look at this material, come up with what we discussed on any other material that's like a stucco?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm making sure that I'm saying the correct things to the applicant is what I'm asking. And for this to be in by May 1st.
So to answer your question, our preference would be to get conditional approval and come back and work with staff and Laura. Any delays in this project, as I said, are not only because, as Tim mentioned, and we're not going to get into the details because it's not your purview, the stack on this, how we're doing it, the financing, the mechanism, there are timelines associated with every other agency and entity that we have. And when we had approval a while ago, we were great. Everybody's rocking and rolling. Any further delays, I mean, the impacts could be a domino or a daisy chain situation between not only the capital stack, but the financing, so what I would request is that a conditional approval based on their condition, and then I'm willing to come back with a piece of it. It seems like everybody's stuck on this corner condition. Is there a way to do that?
And I'll just say, if you look at the application and those attachments, they were submitted on the 20th, which was, he was talking to me on the phone, we were trying to get everything in, so that was actually the day after the last deadline. So it's not that they missed a deadline or anything. So what they've experienced is the shortest time to get to this meeting so far.
I don't know what more I can possibly say except for, based on our histories and how we have operated in the past, I believe this falls within the framework that we've operated. And I get that there are some potentials as far as problems that could arise from this decision. But again, and it may be unfair to the staff, and if it is, I'll apologize up front, I just have found the staff to be very competent and committed to exercising what it is that we're wanting to see done within their work. So I'm comfortable with that dialogue and those conversations to keep the project moving. And if it doesn't work and they're not able to come up with what has been discussed by the staff with us, the staff, I don't believe, would proceed knowing that.
Yeah, but we also have staff who stated that they will want more color and direction based off of our conversation, so it's,
And I think y'all need to provide that.
yeah.
Guys, I'm just a lowly
Yeah,
government
no, no,
affairs guy. I have no expertise in this. I'd love to help facilitate.
that's-
I don't know
Yeah,
enough
and
to
that's
do.
kind of my, I think this is something that's new to me, my profession, and so I'm trying to lean on my architects here that in this product.
In situations like this in the past, the cement siding portion was restricted to the center part and not the parts that were on the perimeter. That's one of the things that's in my head about how this works.
Well, you're talking about the original project for this
Just
one?
in general,
Or
on
just in
this,
gen-
on the previous and the past. Oh, yes, on the previous one, it was a very big consideration and put things all
Inside,
on the
and
inside.
they advised us they couldn't because of the funding source. They weren't allowed to change percentage. But if I'm not mistaken, the Muse has quite a bit on the street facade, as well as the other one that's under construction and that's across the street to the west of there, and I don't even remember what the name of that one is. That also is using this product. I believe West Village did as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
And,
there's others.
and I don't know what percent they've got.
And
so-
West Village is a flat panel, and the inconsistencies of the substrate are telegraphing through on the west side on a flat panel.
Okay.
On a flat surface. That's my concern about
Right.
product. I realize that's probably constructability.
So if we're trying to clarify thoughts, I'm not against the idea of fiber cement cladding. It is a good material. I find it particularly strange to apply it in lap siding detailing on a building that was historically designed to be a masonry product that appeared monolithic with masonry style ephes coins, and then you've applied wood shakes to it. So you've used very wood scale detailing, applied as a wallpaper onto a massing. And so there's then the concern about applying it on the radius on the outside. So I think probably conceptually we're saying fiber cement as a material is probably okay. It's borderline gray area. I think the detailing combined on this massing seems incompatible with itself, and that the curve also creates a concern because of the application of the lap. And so is there a material that we could put on that area that could further reinforce the original massing of a kind of a heavy masonry style building? Maybe that would be more applicable, but I think generally that's the tone that I'm hearing, which is fiber cement could be okay, this profile and detailing not okay, and I don't feel comfortable based on how Laura has communicated that she feels comfortable with the final say on the final profile and texture and finish on whatever fiber cement panel there is. So I'm a bigger fan of letting them go away, think through that lens, continue this, and then bring it back. That's where I sit. They've had 5 months since approval to get to where we are today. So I would like to say, take the 5 business days to work on it some more.
Okay, so am I hearing a continuance then? And to the May meeting?
I'm just expressing where I am. I mean, there could be 3 other people that don't feel that way, but I'm just trying to.
Sure. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I would love to see a continuance.
I would as well. And I don't think I don't think it has to come back as fiber cement. If there's something out, and I'm not trying to unravel it, but if there's something else out there that approximates a unitized look that the original design had and works within the budget and doesn't create a redesign, then I would be happy to entertain that as well. So to give some direction on what you're doing over the next few days.
Okay,
So do we have a motion and do we have a second?
correct. With the continuance,
Correct.
right. So do I have a motion?
I'll motion to continue onto the May Downtown Design Development Review Committee meeting agenda.
And I'll
So-
second it.
Smid motion, Blatt second.
Now, before you do anything, I think I just want to circle back around and make sure that they accept that continuance.
Sure. Is that something that would be applicable? Does it work to have this continue to the next meeting? May 16th.
16th. And you can include in that motion that their new or revised information is due by May 1st.
Okay.
So then it puts it in stone for you guys. For me, that I agree to that.
So is the question, are we agreeable to a May 16th continuance?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Eric and Tony, 1, 2,
Motion
3,
passes.
4.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Next is item 7 for other business.
Hello. Laura Griggs, Planning Department. And let me go back. Okay, that didn't work right. Let me just scroll down. There we go. So some of you might recall at a committee commission training within the last year or two, there was a conversation about consolidating the design review committees. We currently have 5. We have Bricktown, we have Downtown, Scenic River, Stockyard City, and Urban Design Overlay District. We also currently have someone who's on our committee that we have to have a person on our committee that's also on urban design, and so Tony gets to be on 2 committees. So he gets 2 meetings a month. And so these were all established at different times in the past. We had 3 of them that came about in the 90s. And we had 2 that came about in 2007. So we have Downtown that was toward the beginning of the year, and then Scenic River came at the end of the year. And as you can see, Scenic River is enormous by the map that you see. These also say how many people are on the committees, because our committees range from 5 people on Stockyards, you guys have 7, and then Urban Design has 9. So there really isn't a consistency on the size, and Scenic River has 9. So when we were looking at where we are now and trying to figure out where logically would a district fall with another body, we were looking at, okay, we currently have 5. What if we go down to just 2, which is Downtown and Urban Design? And Downtown would also have Bricktown, which seemed very logical to me because it's literally just across the tracks. And then urban design would also get Scenic River and Stockyards. And so urban design has a bunch of little districts, up North Lincoln Boulevard, all the way down to Capitol Hill. And they're very specific districts that have their own criteria. Now, what I will say is, we're talking about consolidating the committees. We're not talking about changing the ordinances, regulations, and guidelines. They're going to stay the same. So currently, we have 9 members on urban design, and we have what the criteria is. And we're proposing to retain 9 members, but you can see that things are changing. We're not going to have a member that's on downtown and urban design again. That means we get to fight over somebody who used to be on both of them. No, I'm just joking on that. And we were looking at trying to have membership for people that knew the districts. You add in Stockyards and you add in Scenic River. So we wanted a criteria that would allow people from those districts to also be incorporated. And so in downtown, what we're looking to do is change it from committee to commission just for consistency, and go from 7 to 9. Of those 9, we're adding a tenant or property owner in Bricktown, which is carrying forward one of requirements that Bricktown currently has. And I think that would be very helpful to have somebody with that knowledge at the meeting. When we were looking at combining these, we were also looking at what has the workload been in all of these groups. Downtown by far is the busiest. Scenic River has picked up. Bricktown cancels most of their meetings. They occasionally have some, and hopefully that will pick up. Urban design cancels a handful, but not, so they have a decent number of cases that come in. And Stockyards only meets quarterly, but probably they only meet about once a year. Most of the cases that would come in Stockyard can be done administratively. So we have looked at who wants to continue serving, as you all know. We've discussed one-on-one, compiled a list by what your qualifications are. Unfortunately, one of the members that's sitting here before me today does not qualify for anything, and I hate that because I wanted him to continue to serve, and I've already had that conversation with Gary, because I've really enjoyed working with Gary.
Same here, thank you.
So we presented this first to the River Trust, because that's why we have Scenic River Overlay Design District. It has been presented to the Riverfront Design Committee. I believe we went to Bricktown last week. And we still have urban design, and Stockyards is on in May 8th. So we'll finish up with the design review committees in May. We're anticipating going to the Planning Commission to start their process, because it goes to them more than once in May, and then City Council June, July. Now, before you erase this off your calendar, that could get derailed. It could be a little longer, as well as ordinances take a minimum of 30 days for them to become effective. We are not starting over on the committees like we thought we were going to, so if you stay on downtown, we have to look at how long you've been on it in the past. If you change, and I'm not talking about Tony on this one, but if one of the other members were to go to urban design, you start all over again. Tony's been on both, and so he has a term limit for both of those, which makes it a little more unique when we try to figure that out. And so staff has been working with the mayor's office on trying to come up with, these are the people that are willing to continue to serve. We do have some people that have just gotten so busy that they can't anymore. And so there are some people that are not being forwarded to the mayor's office currently, and we have 38 bodies, and we will have 18. So we're hoping it will be easier to appoint people. We've gone times when we've had 1 or 2 vacancies on this committee, and it's made it really difficult trying to get a quorum, and we maybe have to have a special meeting because we're trying not to delay things. So with that being said, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, including the ordinance. There's a lot of things that have to change. And I don't know if anybody has any questions. We are recommending that you provide a recommendation of approval to the Planning Commission. But you might have questions.
No, at least to me, it seems pretty straightforward. If you have some bodies that don't meet as regular that could be absorbed. But yes, I do like the aspect of making sure that you do retain the tenants or property owners from the Bricktown core into this body or the new body.
That's one of the things, whenever I was on Scenic Overlay, they had developers or something that was on there, and they had an entirely different perspective whenever we were having discussions. Mr. Yost.
Yeah, two of the members of the 9 on Scenic River are from the River Trust
Yeah,
Board.
yeah.
And that's why we took it to them first to see if they were comfortable with not having those seats at the table anymore, and they were.
Yeah, I think I think this is a good solution.
I'll make
Ditto.
I'll make a motion to provide a recommendation of approval of this ordinance amendment to the Planning Commission.
Second?
Okay, Schmidt, Jones? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, other business B, is that?
Pardon? No, Katie's going to come down, and then I'll come back up for the last one.
Okay.
And so we'll.
Katie's just going to say ditto. Any questions?
What she said?
Hello. So,
State your name, please.
Katie Priddle, Planning Department. See, I don't ever do this. I don't know how to get. How do I get home? Okay.
You need the staff report.
I'm okay.
Okay. Well,
So-
that's what the green thing is, but it wasn't working.
Yeah. So this
no, let's just
is,
go like
while Laura
this.
navigates, this is a hopefully very simple ordinance amendment.
There.
A little over 10 years ago,
Now
thank
just-
you.
now just
Thanks.
pull it.
Okay. City Council added a list of urban agriculture uses in virtually every zoning district across the city. Things like community gardens, urban farms, rooftop gardens, that sort of thing, as conditional uses. So they have requirements for, making sure that they're compatible within the districts where they're located. They still have to meet bulk regulations, et cetera. At that time, as I understand it, in the interest of just moving that ordinance along quickly, they skipped over design review districts. So these urban agriculture uses are allowed throughout the city, but not in downtown Bricktown or the Stockyards Core Development District. We have been asked to go back and add those uses as conditional uses to those 3 design review districts. All of the other regulations, requirements for fencing, for screening, et cetera, building materials will remain for those uses. So if someone's going to install one of those, they would still have to make the same improvements that any other property owner would. The only other regulatory language that we tweaked was language that already existed for downtown about accessory structures being exempt from a minimum height and a maximum setback, to make that language clear that you can have an accessory structure without a primary structure when it's accessory to the use. This is something we've already kind of interpreted the regulations to say, such as with things like Scissortail Park. All of the buildings in Scissortail Park are clearly not 2, 3, 10 stories. They aren't 10 feet off the property line because they are accessory to the park. So if you were building some sort of small structure to provide storage space for your community garden, it would be treated as accessory to the community garden use. Beyond that, I'm hoping this is pretty simple and straightforward, and happy to answer any questions you guys
And
have.
the only thing I would ask is, this actually came about because I was contacted last year by somebody who was wanting to do it. And he said, it's allowed everywhere. I'm like, it's not, sorry. And so, and then I was contacted by someone else who I just the other day sent an email, said, this is where we are with this, because two different groups of people have been waiting for us to come forward with this one. So hopefully we will have no bumps in the road and can continue forward. So,
No? I don't see any issue with this at all, so.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Okay, Jones, motion? Second. Platt, second.
Thank you all. And back to Laura for number 3.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, item C.
hi, Laura Griggs, Planning Department. Never done an ordinance amendment before, and so, but I've been here 9 years, and it's about time. Once the screen changes, I have a map that I need to go to. So, you might not know that when the Downtown Design District was created, in the original ordinance, there was an area, which you're looking at here, around the memorial downtown, that at the time prohibited billboards. And it was part of the original adoption in 2007. So you can see on one side it's Hudson, the other side Broadway, to the north it's 7th, and on the south it's Dean A. McGee. In 2010, amendment was made to that section. And what was added to things that were prohibited in that area was EMD signs and the large display banners, super graphics. I'll just call it the Thunder banners because that's what everybody is seeing now that they're putting them up on Paycom and Omni. So those were prohibited. Recently, the council adopted the new sign code that went into effect March 15th. And the new sign regs didn't fully coordinate the existing provisions that prohibit certain types of signs within this defined area around the memorial. As well, the new sign regulations changed the title of certain types of signs, and we need to clean that up in this. Yes, we're finding things we need to clean up, and so we're going to take the opportunity when we have to do something with it to clean it up. And so what we're proposing is, with this ordinance that's attached, is to add murals and temporary signs in certain public rights-of-way to the list of prohibited signage. You might have seen on the news, the signs in the right-of-way is something new. And that was something that the city had to go back and add because of certain entities that were very concerned about that prohibition in the right-of-way, even though they've always been prohibited. And then also amend the title of some certain types of signs. So we're looking at this to go to the Planning Commission, April, May, and then on to council, June, July. So.
Questions? We approved some signage on Prairie Surf some months back with like a termination date of like December 2026. Would that kind of be cleaned up in this language or with the new sign?
No, so
Okay.
this is only dealing with this defined area that you're looking at in the map. So with Prairie Surf, you approved, they came forward and they had to get a variance, and the dates that were approved for that variance, because it wasn't you can do it forever. No, their variance for their super graphics had an end date, and it was
Correct,
based on their lease.
Okay.
And it's been on the news that it was announced their lease was not going to be extended. So their agreement allowed them to do certain things with their super graphics, but they're obviously not in this area.
Okay.
And I'll just add that, now that the sign code is in effect, staff is tracking things as they come up that we think need to be clarified, that maybe aren't working the way that we thought they would, that we need to go back and address. And there will be, at some point, a larger kind of cleanup, as always happens when we put new regulations into effect. When this was identified and it was such a defined area, such a small change, as well as such an important area in the city where we wanted to make sure we were maintaining that protection that had already been in place, we decided to move this forward quickly.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yep. Thank you.
And I think the timing is totally appropriate that
Sure.
that we have this on here.
I'll make a motion to provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Okay, Blatt Jones. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Communications, anything on that, Laura?
Honestly, don't even remember.
You have like four items on administrative approval.
Let's see, what did we do? Well, the one building on Colcord, which is just across the street here, and it's an interesting building because I guess it's condoed or something, and so the credit union's on one side of the building, and then this lawyer's the other side, and so it's just for that. But making a lot of changes to the exterior, I think it will make it more appealing for pedestrians with their adding changing the door on the corner. I think that will be an exciting project. One of them is a sign, because now we can allow 2 signs in DTD1, and which is what the Flintco sign is about. And then the first one, you all had approved an apartment building that's going in a parking lot that's up by St. Anthony, and they originally eliminated the drive access into the rest of the parking lot, and now they're adding an entrance only and stuff, and so they had to kind of clean up some things with that one. And then 816 Walker, just up the street, they're putting in some signs that are, I think will look really nice on that building, that mimic one that's already on the building. It's an older building. And other than that, we obviously now have a meeting next month. I was going to tell you, hey, you might hear it from us next week that we have canceled it, but now we have an item. And as I mentioned earlier, do not erase this from your calendar until we tell you to. So
Okay.
that is it.
Okay. And comments from committee members? Any other comments from planning department? Okay, next regular committee meeting is Thursday, May 16th, 2024. New applications were to be submitted by staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, April 16th. Revisions and information on continuing projects to be submitted by April 23rd, 2024.
But we changed that to May
But we
1st for
changed
the
it to May
project that's
1st,
coming. Yes,
correct?
I want to get that on the record.
Yes, on the record. And if there's not anything else, we are adjourned.